Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Thrive Era. I am your host, Kim. I hope you guys are doing well. Guys, we're already halfway done with 2024. I can't even believe it. Time is going by so fast. I'm recording this. Today is June 6th. Tomorrow, my baby girl turns 2. I am just beside myself. I'm like I'm not ready. But it's just bittersweet. They tell you that they grow fast, but until you have kids of your own, you don't realize how freaking fast the time actually goes. Like, I say it all the time. I feel like I just gave birth to her yesterday, but I really do feel like I just had her. Like, how is it that she's already 2 years old? I'm in disbelief. Time is just going way too fast, and it needs to slow down. But I'm super excited for the weekend because in honor of her turning 2, my husband and I decided to do a little family staycation. So we're going to head to the beach tomorrow and we're going to stay there for 2 nights and celebrate our little Indy becoming a little toddler and everything that comes with it. So that's going to be exciting. That should be a lot of fun and definitely a nice little mental break that we both need. So yeah, I'm really excited to just do nothing and relax. I'm not excited to be in a bikini or a bathing suit, I should say, because I have been going through this really awkward, because of my situation. I've mentioned this before. My body is just like holding on to water and I'm just carrying my weight in different places and very awkwardly. So like I eat something and I bloat immediately. Like my stomach is just, I've said this before, I look pregnant all the time. Constantly pregnant, and I've also gained a little bit of weight, because I haven't been able to I normally try to walk a minimum of a mile every single day. And it has been so hot that I have not been able to go outside and walk. So my body has been a little bit stagnant lately. So I've gained about, I want to say maybe like 5 or 6 pounds. But I'm short. I'm only 5 feet tall. So literally any weight I gain or lose is very noticeable on me because I'm so small. So I'm feeling very insecure right now. Not great. Not excited to be in a bathing suit, but we're all about thriving here, right? So gonna do it regardless and try to push the negative thoughts away. But speaking of that, can I just say real quick, when did it become okay to continuously comment on people's appearance? Because from my point of view, I consider that very rude. But there are just people that constantly feel the need to comment. If you gain weight, they let you know. If you lose weight, they let you know. If you look tired, they let you know. If you have any kind of flaw, they let you know. And I'm just like, dude, we have mirrors at home. We know what we look like. Thank you. We don't need you telling me. Like, I'm very aware I've gained weight, or I'm very aware I've lost weight. I'm going through a very difficult, trying time in my life right now. I don't need people constantly telling me, oh, Kim, you've gained weight. Oh, Kim, you've lost a lot of weight. Oh, Kim, you look really tired. Oh, Kim, your skin is so dark. Like, I don't need that. I'm very aware. I'm hyper fixated on my appearance because I'm so insecure on what I look like because my body just changed so dramatically. So that's a whole other battle I'm working on. But in the meantime, guys, everybody out there, please stop commenting on people's appearance, especially now that it's summertime. We don't need, if someone has bumps on their skin, anything, you don't need to point it out. I promise you they're aware and they're insecure about it already without you pointing it out. So just a little food for thought, because I'm, on the other side, someone could be commenting to you and telling you how you look and how you don't look good. And you don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that, especially if or especially if you don't have any control over it. Like right now, I don't have control of what I look like. My body is doing its own thing, dealing with a chronic illness. So just food for thought. Be kind to others. Keep your thoughts to yourself. And, the old saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it, okay? Don't say anything at all. Whew, had to get that off my chest. But moving on, let's talk about my health. I don't really have any updates since the last episode. Everything's pretty much still the same. On the topic of the list, though, I am still not on the list. I made a decision that I am going to, after this birthday weekend, I'm going to start applying at other places for a transplant, because right now I've solely been dealing with Advent Health, mainly because they claimed that they are the company, I guess you would say, that is apparently doing transplants with the lesser wait time. So we were like, heck yes, sign us up for Advent Health, because if they're knocking it out, let's do it. They've been dragging their damn feet, and I'm sorry, but my issue with my blood pressure is because my kidneys don't work. So you would think hey, this girl needs a kidney, we need to get her on that list. No. They just keep sending me to specialist after specialist after specialist. I'm going in circles because I'll go to an appointment and they'll be like, oh, we need to refer you to this guy. And then I'll see that guy. And then that guy's like, okay, we'll clear you. And then I go back and they're like, oh, actually, now you need to see this. So I feel like something's fishy. I don't know. I wouldn't say fishy. I'm being dramatic, but I feel like they're not, the thing is, I have someone who's willing to donate to me. So it's not like I don't have anybody. So you would think okay, she needs a kidney. She has someone willing to donate. Let's get the show on the road. No, they're I'm not even on the list, guys. Even just for me to get on the list is the most impossible task ever. So I decided to start applying other places. So I'm gonna check Tampa and Gainesville and stuff and start sending an application that way, because I think I've waited 2 years too long now, and I know there's people that wait longer, but I have a donor. That's the thing. So people wait on the wait list because they don't have anyone to donate to them. I do. So I'm really frustrated, if you can't hear in my voice, and I'm just tired of it. So yeah, that's the quick little recap. My blood pressure is still pretty much under control as of now. We've been pretty good. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on that. So today's episode is going to be all about my pregnancy and sharing my birth story. I actually originally wanted to record and release this episode on Mother's Day, but like I mentioned in my last episode, May was just so busy I wasn't able to. But that's okay. That's life. So we're doing it now. And I basically just want to share with you guys how my pregnancy went and how it all began, and how I ended up chronically ill. So I figured some backstory would be fun and a little bit of detail to kind of give a better explanation of what happened to me and all of that. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, originally, my husband and I never wanted children. We would always say we were never having kids. Like, you can ask anybody, my parents, his parents, our friends, like, everyone can vouch. We used to always say we're never having kids. Like, mind you, when we started dating, we were kids ourselves, but we kept that same mindset throughout basically our 20s as well. We were selfish and we were enjoying our lives together, and we wanted to do whatever we wanted, travel wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And we loved it. We enjoyed our lives so much. Like, we had the best time. But I want to say around when I was like about 27-ish, I started having second thoughts, like a little itch, we'll say. Like, maybe I might want a kid. But I pushed it away because I wasn't 100% sure. So in my mind, I was like, well, this is probably just a temporary feeling and it'll go away, and then I'll go back to not wanting kids again. So I never told anybody. I kind of just kept it to myself, ignored it, went about my day. But that itch never went away. And at 29, I realized I was 100% sure I wanted to have kids, or a baby. Because I only wanted one at the time. So I actually had this vision one day, and I saw myself in the future old, and I was at like one of those like senior nursing homes, and in the vision I was just there alone, and I had like no one visiting me, no one calling me, because I never had kids. So I never had grandkids, I never had family like extended. So I was alone, nobody calling, nobody coming to see me, and I was really sad. And that made me really sad. I was like, wow, I don't want that to be my future. And I always say one other thing that really got me was I didn't want to die without experiencing motherhood. So I talked to my husband. I told him everything I was feeling. And he asked me a million times, like, we went back and forth for almost a year. Him asking me, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. Like, I'm positive. I want a baby. So he got on board after a while. And he said, if you're certain that's what you want, then I'll give that to you. And I said, yes, I'm certain I want a baby. So yeah, this was like around 29, I think around 30 we started trying. So this was in 2021. So that's when we started trying. And we only were trying for like about a month, but then something really bad happened. That August of 2021, I almost died. And it was very scary. And I want to actually use this as a moment to give a PSA out there for my ladies. Take care of your area down there, because in August, I got a UTI, and that UTI was so bad that I ended up in the ER because I waited too long. So basically, I noticed a little bit of pain while I was peeing. I want to say it was like a Sunday night, and it was very minimal. And I was like, oh no, I think I have a UTI. And this was like Sunday night at home. and I had a little tiny bit of like a burning sensation, whatever. So the next day, Monday, I'm at work, and I noticed throughout the day my pain is getting worse and worse and worse. And I told my manager at the time, I was like, because she noticed, she's like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know why I'm in so much pain. I was like, I can tell I have a UTI. She's like, you need to go to the doctor. And I was like, okay. So I called my doctor, and I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure I have a UTI. Can I like get some antibiotics or get an appointment or something? And they're like, oh, well, in order for us to prescribe you anything, we need to confirm the UTI. And I was like, okay. She's like, so we need you to come in and pee. And I was like, okay, well, I can go, like, let me know. They're like, oh, we have to make an appointment. And I was like, okay, when will that be? And it was like 2 days later. I'm like in major pain now. I don't have 2 days. And they're like, oh, sorry, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, whatever, like, put me down for the appointment. So then that night, I'm at home. I am in excruciating pain. Like, guys, I'm telling you, I was in bed. I came home from work. I went straight to bed because I felt terrible. And by the time I got out of bed, I was legit crawling. Like, I was in so much pain. I could barely walk. So I told my husband, what's going on? And he's like, okay, do you want me to take you to the hospital? And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait it out and see. I don't know why. So then the next morning, I was in the same amount of pain because I thought maybe the pain would like get better, but it didn't. It got worse. So Tuesday morning, I had to call out of work and went straight to the ER. And the doctor at the ER, they took my pee. They confirmed, obviously, I had a UTI, and the doctor basically ripped me a new one, and he's like, if you would have waited one more day, you probably would have died. And he's like, this infection got so bad, so fast, that it is now in your bloodstream and you are septic. And I was like, what? Like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, septic, it means you're on the verge of dying. And I was like, holy shit, like, what? So I was in the hospital for about a week treating that. And finally I got better to the point where I was able to go home. And I remember I had to go home with like this, it was like an IV in my arm, but it was like a sturdy one that's meant to last like a long time. Because I had to keep administering this antibiotic for another week after I got sent home at home. Like, I even had to go into a clinic and learn, like, take like a little mini class on how to administer the antibiotic and stuff. So I had to do that for like an additional week after I got discharged. And then I had to go back in and get that taken out or whatever. So that happened. So ladies, moral of the story is don't wait, number one. And number two, make sure you are wiping front to back. You already know all this. Wash yourselves. Don't hold your pee. You know, go pee after you do the deed. All these tips. You guys are very aware. You're all adults, you know. But I just have to say, just make sure. Don't wait. Because you could end up like that, which I wasn't even aware that could happen from a UTI. But yeah, that was a really bad time. So anyways, that was August. So basically all of August I was out of commission. And then in September, my husband and I had a big trip. We went on a trip to Arizona and like road tripped around. So we didn't want to start trying again because we didn't want to get pregnant and have to like ruin the trip or whatever. So fast forward to October, and we go to Boston because we go up there to celebrate. My best friend turned 30 years old, so we went up there to celebrate her. And that weekend, after a fun night out, I remember I told my husband, I was like, because he came with me, and I was like, you are putting a baby in me this weekend. And literally. And that happened in Boston. And then fast forward to Halloween weekend. So Halloween weekend. Halloween was on a Sunday. And a group of us, so it was me, my 2 girlfriends, and our husbands, the 6 of us, we decided, hey, why not just go celebrate Halloween in St. Augustine? So that Saturday, we only stayed for a night. We went up there Saturday during the day, and we stayed Saturday night, partied, and then came home Sunday. So I remember that Friday, the Friday before we left, I was telling my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, because by then my period was maybe like 2 days late, which wasn't anything crazy for me. So I was like, should I take a test? And he's like, nah, like this happens to you, often. Like it's not rare that your period is a couple days late. And I was like, yeah, but I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, I don't know, but this kind of feels different. And he's like, yeah, I think you're fine. So I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Cause that would always happen to me. Like my period would be like 2 or 3 days late. I panic, take a test, and then it comes right after I take a test. So I was like, you know what? It's probably going to happen like it normally does. So I ignored it and we went to St. Augustine. So okay. Guys, this is great. This is where the story gets a little crazy. So I'm a huge believer in signs. Like, I really do think that God gives us signs throughout our days. And not everything is a coincidence. So keep that in mind. So at St. Augustine, Sunday morning, we're still there. We all go somewhere to have brunch. So we end up at this restaurant, and so the 6 of us are eating, and once we finish eating, me and the girls, we spotted a little like boutique shop across the street. So the girls and I went to check it out while the guys stayed behind to pay. So we left. We go to the boutique, and we agreed we'd meet back up at a brewery that was like a few blocks away, so we would just walk there. So we're at the brewery, the guys are checking out. So we meet up at the brewery, and my husband is like, so this restaurant that we were just at, when you pay your tab, they bring it to you in a book. And it's like any book, like just a random book. Everyone got a different book. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he's like, do you want to know what my book was? And I was like, yeah, what was it? And he goes, the book that my tab came in said, the title was, Dude, You're Gonna Be a Dad. And guys, when I tell you, my stomach dropped when he told me that. So when he told me that, I was holding a beer. Like I was drinking a beer. I literally put the beer down and I didn't touch it for the rest of the time there. I think my friends were asking, they were like, why aren't you drinking that? And I think I just lied and said I didn't like it. Cause I didn't want to be like, I think I'm pregnant, guys. So if that is not a sign of all signs, I don't know what to tell you, but literally when he told me that, I got goosebumps, and I was like, right then and there, I knew. Without even taking a test, I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. So like I said, I put the beer down, and then everyone finished their drinks, blah, blah, blah. We all head home. So we come home, and I'm literally in my head like anxious as hell because I know I'm coming home to take a test. So I go straight to the bathroom, and I take a test, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and I see the 2 lines. And I literally just dropped to my knees, and I just start crying because I got such a like rush of emotions because it just didn't feel real. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's happening. So I literally run across the house because my husband was using our other bathroom, and I'm crying, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy. He's like, what's wrong? And I pull out the test, and I just hold it in front of him. And he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, and I just nodded my head. I couldn't even talk. And yeah, we both kind of started crying, and it was just like a mix of emotions, because it was like we knew right away like our lives were going to change forever. And yeah, and it's such a funny memory to think back on. So that was Sunday. Monday morning, I call my gyno, and I tell him, hey, I took, because by then I had already taken like 3 other tests. And I was like, I've taken like 4 pregnancy tests. They're all positive. I just want to make an appointment to confirm the pregnancy. So I make an appointment, and then the day of the appointment comes, and they do the ultrasound, and we see little baby in the belly. Oh my gosh. I'm going to cry thinking about that day. Just like seeing her for the first time. Yeah, that tiny little dot, and she was literally the size of a sesame seed when we saw her for the first time. And that was like an emotional ultrasound. I think we both cried for that one too. And it was just crazy, like just seeing it. And, we were both terrified at the same time, but I had prayed to God saying, God, if I'm meant to be a mom, please let me get pregnant. And there she was in my belly. My little miracle answered. And guys, the crazy thing is, like, from the moment I saw her that day, I knew it was a girl. Like, I just had this feeling in my heart and soul that it was a girl. And I would tell Javi all the time, I'm like, it's a girl. I can feel it. It's like, it's a girl. And he's like, no, we're going to have a boy. We're going to have a boy. I'm like, you could say that all you want, but I'm telling you right now, it's a girl. And then we did our gender reveal, and that was really special because it was just us. We didn't want to do like a whole thing. We wanted to just do it together in private, because like it felt very like an intimate thing. Like, it's our baby, like, so it wanted to be like our moment. And that was another emotional thing. It's like awesome thinking back to all these little things. But I have to say my pregnancy overall was really good. I'm so sorry for the dinging for the messages. I record this on my Mac laptop, and I don't know how to turn it off. Maybe if I lower the volume for the dinging, if I mute it, let's try that. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I know that's annoying. I'm learning as I go. I'm so not techie, so please forgive me, but I just muted it, so hopefully it won't keep going off. But anyways, yes. So back to my pregnancy. Overall, I would say I had a really good pregnancy. The first trimester, I experienced a lot of nausea, but I never threw up. I was just always nauseous. And I was extremely tired. Like, I could fall asleep anywhere, like literally anywhere. I could pass out. But other than that, I really cannot complain. I loved being pregnant. I didn't have any intense cravings either. I craved Coke Slurpees a lot. I wanted those all the time, and Chick-fil-A. But those were like the 2 things I always wanted, but I never craved anything weird. And I can honestly say I enjoyed my pregnancy until I hit 33 weeks. I will never forget, at one of my follow-up appointments, they would take my blood pressure every appointment because I already had high blood pressure to begin with. So I had a high-risk pregnancy. So they monitored me very closely to make sure it didn't go above a specific threshold, which I don't remember what the number was. So I couldn't tell you. But yeah, so I'll never forget. I had my 33-week follow-up, and they took my blood pressure, and every time they took it, I always secretly prayed that it wouldn't be high, that it would be normal, and I'd be in the clear. So that day when the cuff emptied out, that is when my worst nightmare began. It was high, too high, and the doctor immediately said, you need to go home, pack your bags, and go straight to the hospital. He's like, I'm admitting you. And I was like, damn it. I was hoping I would make it longer because I was almost guaranteed to develop preeclampsia because of my prior blood pressure issues. But I was hoping, maybe I'd be lucky and I wouldn't be a statistic, but nope. I did develop it, unfortunately, and so it all went downhill from there. So I remember that was the one appointment my husband wasn't able to make it to because he had something going on at work that he couldn't miss. So I remember calling him and being like, babe, and I'm like crying, sobbing on the phone. I'm like, I have to pack a bag and go to the hospital. They're admitting me. And he's like trying to calm me down because, I'm pregnant, crying, driving. He's like, calm down, like, don't speed, blah, blah, blah. So we go home, pack a bag, and rush to the hospital. And I get admitted. And I'm basically put on bed rest. And I'm being, like, very closely monitored. Like, they take my blood pressure, like, every, like, half hour or something. I don't remember. So once I was on bed rest, though, my blood pressure went down. So the doctors were like, you know what? Your blood pressure is cooperating while you're here in bed rest. Let's, because they were ready to induce me at 34 weeks to give birth. And I was devastated because if towards the end of the pregnancy, those last weeks are like important for the baby's development. So I was devastated. I was like, I don't want her, I want her to form as much as possible, but it's very dangerous to for the baby and for the mom to have high blood pressure. So I told the doctors, I'm like, whatever's best for her and for me, like, that's what we'll do. So the doctor's like, if you're willing to wait, I think we should give it more time, see how your blood pressure keeps behaving, keep her in there cooking a little bit longer. And I said, absolutely, anything to keep her in longer. So we get to the end of 34 weeks and my blood pressure starts spiking again. So they're like, hey, we think it's time. And I was like, okay. So at 35 weeks, I got induced. This was June 6th of 2022. And then the next day, June 7th, I gave birth. And that day we welcomed our sweet baby girl. She weighed only 4 pounds and 12 ounces, just enough where she didn't need the NICU. And it was love at first sight. I remember when they handed her to me, I was just like, this is mine. Like, she's mine. This is my baby. I made this. Anyways, her birth was pretty smooth overall. I had the option of a C-section, but I really wanted to give birth vaginally. Guys, I learned so much that day that I was not aware of, that entails pregnancy and birth and all of that. Like, I'll admit, I did not do my research. Like, there's moms out there that they will study like every little thing about giving birth and like they know down to the T, like how they want to do it and what they want to do. I was not one of those moms. I was like just going with the flow, taking the days how they come, learning as I go. Like, I was not like, all right, what happens at week, whatever, like I was just very much going with the flow, taking it all as it came. And so tell you what, I learned a lot in the span of her birth. So first of all, contractions are the worst. So when I got induced, I wasn't oh my gosh, I don't remember the word. I think it's dilating. So it took forever. I was stuck at 4 centimeters for like hours after I got induced, like literal hours. So they had to put like one of those balloon things in me. Oh my God, that was so painful. I legit cried when they did that. And so then I finally, whatever, my cervix opened or whatever. So they took it out. Super painful. 0 out of 10 recommend. But then, I was getting the contractions. Oh my gosh. That is so painful. That was probably the worst thing. So they did give me epidural, and the thing with my epidural was it worked for like the first hour. And then it stopped. So I remember I, was telling the nurse, I'm like, this hurts so bad. And I'm like pushing the button, because they give you a button to push if it's like gets really painful, to like it like puts more medicine in you. And I'm just like about to break the button, and it's not working. So I tell the nurse, I'm like, I am in so much pain, this epidural is not working. And she's like, it should be working. I'm like, it did work, and then it stopped. I feel everything. And she's like, okay, let me call. So they call the anesthesia team that like puts it in. So I'm like waiting for this team to come back, because obviously they're busy. I'm not the only patient. And while I'm waiting, I'm like, oh my God, the baby's coming. Like I could feel it. So I tell the nurse, and guys, this taught me so much about also advocating for myself. You know, you at the end of the day got to stick up for yourself in these situations, because no one else will. And so I told the nurse, I'm like, hey, my baby's coming. I can feel it. I'm going to give birth. And the nurse is like, the nurse told me, she's like, no, we just checked you like 30 minutes ago. She's like, you there's no way, like she's coming already. We just checked you. We can't check you again. It's too soon, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you're just probably just feeling it. And I'm like, okay. Mind you, I've never had a baby before. So I'm like, okay, she knows more than I do. She does this for a living. I've never had a baby before. So what do I know? So I'm like, okay, so I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 minutes go by, and another nurse comes in. So I tell her, I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry, but I'm about to give birth. I think I'm going to give birth. And she's like, okay. And she listened to me. This nurse was like listening to me. She's like, okay, whatever you say, like, let's check. So she checks, and she's like, oh, yep, you're ready. This baby's coming right now. And I was like, I freaking knew it. And I was like, I told the other nurse, and she told me I was wrong. And she's like, oh, she's new, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. So like, listen to your body. Guys, your body, for my first time mommies out there, your body will tell you when it's ready. You will feel it. So listen to your body, and it'll tell you if it's not ready. So if you're telling a nurse something and they're not listening, find another nurse, because that's what I had to do. Find someone that's going to listen to you. So because this nurse listened to me, I was able to start pushing right away. So she's like, all right, let's do this. So I start pushing, and they're like, so problem, the doctor is stuck giving birth. He's with sorry, I thought I heard something. That was my dog. The doctor is currently with another patient. We're going to have to wait for him, but we paged him, and he's going to come as soon as he's done. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. So she's like, we're going to start pushing, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I've done this a million times. Trust me, I got you. Like, you're fine. Like, this nurse was awesome. She was such a good, like motivator. She's like, you got this, blah, blah, blah. So I pushed for 34 minutes, I believe. And baby girl was out. And, yeah. So she came to the world, like I said earlier, at 4 pounds, 12 ounces. And I believe she was 18 inches, which I feel like was pretty long for a little baby, little 35-week baby. And she was just heavy enough where she didn't need to go to the NICU, because that's one thing we were like worried about. And she just like barely made it by ounces, where they're like, nope, she's good, like weight wise. So we took her, I gave birth, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Talk about giving birth. I did not know. This is one of the things that I wish I knew. I didn't know that you have to birth the placenta afterwards. So we had to do that. And then I wasn't aware also that after you give birth, they basically have to like push on your stomach to get like excess things out of you. Oh my gosh, that was so painful. Like that hurt more than giving birth. I will say giving birth wasn't painful. It was more of like pressure. I don't know. Like I feel like I could give birth 10 times over. But like contractions and then the pushing on the stomach right after. Oh my God. That is so painful, guys. Like so painful. Yeah, so we had her, and then once we were back settled in our room, those few nights in the hospital were so hard. She was a little crier. And honestly though, I think the hardest part for us was because she was born so little, we had to force feed her to catch up. So we had to feed her every 2 hours so she would gain weight. Because, babies, after they're born, they tend to lose some weight. So she went down, guys, to like 3 pounds or something. And we had to force feed her every 2 hours to get her to gain some weight because she was so underweight at one point. And my husband and we did everything we had to do around the clock for her. And I will say, for like the first month of Layla's life, I didn't change one diaper. Javi was the most amazing, hands-on, father ever. I don't think I can ever complain, and I never will. He was so good. And he was on it. Like, he was never one of those, oh, you're the woman, you handle it type of thing. He was just, on it. He's such a good dad. Even now, he's such a great father to Layla. So, yeah, so those were some things I learned. And then, the hospital was pretty helpful. They're very big on, at least the people I got were really big on teaching how to, have your baby latch. And they taught me how to use my pump because I brought it to the hospital, and they, helped me set up the settings and things like that. So it was really good. It was a good experience, help wise. But then baby girl, while we were there, the day we're getting discharged, she developed, oh my gosh, what is it called? Jaundice. So we had to stay a few extra days because of that as well. So I was in the hospital literally for I think 14 days straight, from 33 weeks past I don't even know. I was there from end of May, early June through early June. So I was there for a long time, but finally we went home and brought her home, and it's been a wild and amazing ride. So we come home, and normally with preeclampsia, what happens is it goes away after you give birth. That's normally how it goes. But since I already had blood pressure issues prior, my preeclampsia did not get better. It got worse. And because it got so bad and it did not go down, it ended up causing kidney failure. And so I started feeling the symptoms of kidney failure. I gave birth in June. I want to say I started feeling symptoms maybe like in July. I was not getting better. I was really swollen, like super swollen. Like my feet and legs were like ginormous, and my face was swollen, and I just didn't feel good. So I went to the doctor, and that's when they told me, they're like, yeah, it looks like your kidneys are failing. And I was like, oh, okay. So they're like trying their best to control my blood pressure, because they're like, oh, if we can get the blood pressure down, then we can hopefully save your kidneys and avoid having to put you on dialysis. And I was like, okay. So they're trying and trying and trying. Then, guys, in early August, I always joke around is a cursed month for me, because something always happens to me in August and I end up in the hospital. So this August, this was 2022, my husband and I, for his birthday, go to a Bad Bunny concert. It was really last minute. I literally bought the tickets the day of. And we were like, I was like really hesitant at first, because like Layla was only about 2 months old. I'm like, I had a lot of anxiety about leaving her anywhere. So we were like, you know what? It's one night. We deserve it, blah, blah, blah. So we drop her off at grandma's. This is the first time she goes to grandma's. And we're like, okay, we'll pick her up later. And we go to the concert. So we go to the concert. Mind you, we had the time of our lives. Best concert ever. So much fun. Oh my God. It was like 100 out of 10. And then a few days later, I wake up terribly sick and I test positive for COVID. So I am like incredibly ill, like super, super ill, to the point where I'm like feeling so bad. I go to the hospital, and they kept me there for 5 days or so. And I was on like really intense, antibiotics and stuff. And it's really hard for me to talk about that time. I think this was probably the most traumatizing thing that might have happened to me ever. And I'm sharing this with the world for the first time. So forgive me if I struggle a little bit to talk about this, but I was in the hospital on really intense antibiotics, and I was on this steroid called dexamethasone, and that was supposed to help me with the COVID. So I was in the hospital for 5 days. I got sent home. I got discharged on a Friday. But when I got discharged, I told my husband, I was like, mind you, I'm a new mom. Like, my baby's still only 2 months. I had to leave them for 5 days without seeing them because I was in the hospital for COVID. So they had me isolated. So I couldn't even have visitors. And that was such a it was such a dark period then. It's hard for me to think about, but yeah, so I finally get discharged on a Friday. My husband comes to get me, and I tell him I'm feeling fuzzy, like I just don't feel right. And we're like, maybe I just, from the isolation and everything, I'm tired and I need to rest. So that night I go home, I take a shower, and I go to bed, and I just go to sleep. And then the next day I wake up, and I'm still feeling very fuzzy. So this is Saturday now. And I'll never forget, my friend had texted me a question. And I remember looking at my phone, reading it, and I couldn't. And it was a simple question. It was something like, hey, what day works best to go to dinner? Something like that. And I kept reading the question over and over and over, and I couldn't figure out how to answer it. Like, the question just didn't make sense to me. And I remember telling Javi, I was like, I don't know how to answer that. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why. I just can't put it together. And he's like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? It's an easy question. And I just remember getting so frustrated because he couldn't figure out something was wrong with me. And I'm like, and I couldn't figure out how to ask him. He's like, are you okay? And I didn't know how to answer. Like, my brain, I couldn't connect my thoughts to my mouth and my brain. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I don't know. I just feel off. I feel weird. So this was Saturday, and I remember me and him went for a walk. We put the baby in the stroller, and he's like, let's just go for a walk. I'm like, maybe I need some fresh air, blah, blah, blah. So we go for a walk, we're talking, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe I feel better. So we, get the baby ready for bed, get ourselves ready for bed. And then this is where it got really scary. So mind you, I was gone for a whole week. So he was taking care of her by himself for a whole week. And that night, she's like, she's still a newborn. So she woke up crying because she had gotten a little cold. I remember she was like really stuffy herself. So we think she might have gotten sick too. So I remember we had the little, I don't know what it's called, the little squishy ball thing that you can like suck mucus out of them. So I remember my husband's like, she's crying, and he's like, hey, can you get the baby? Help her. And I was like, what do I do? Like, I literally couldn't figure out what to do. And he's like, you take the thing and you help her. And I'm literally, I just remember standing over her crib, panicking internally because I couldn't figure out what to do with her. And Javi's like, whatever, like, I'll just do it myself. And he was like so mad at me. And I'm just like, I want to cry and scream and be like, help me, help me, help me. But my brain couldn't, and the words wouldn't come out. And so the next day, Sunday, comes along, and I wake up and I am like a literal zombie. Like, I'm literally staring at him, no, like, blank stare. He's like asking me to do something for the baby. I'm like, I can't do it. And he's like, what do you mean you can't do it? And I'm like, I don't know how. I can't do it. And that day, he's like, I'm taking you back to the hospital. And so he calls his mom, and his mom picks me up to take me to the hospital because Javi didn't want to take the baby. So his mom takes me to the hospital. I'm a literal zombie. Everything anyone would ask me my answer was, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's so crazy because internally, like, I was screaming for help. I was like, somebody please help me. And I literally thought I was going crazy. I was like, oh my God, like, I just got out of the hospital. I just had a baby, and now they're going to send me to a psychiatric place. Like, I for sure, guys, thought I was going to get sent away to a psychiatric facility. Because I'm like, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I checked out and I'm mentally done. And this was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Like, I'm still, like, literally, it's so hard for me to talk about it because I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, to literally feel like you're trapped inside your body. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, I was trapped inside my body. And I remember my family being there, and they're like, what's your name? I don't know. Do you have a daughter? I don't know. How old is she? I don't know. No thoughts behind my eyes. Like, I was gone. And I just remember seeing Javi crying because he's like, Nobody knew what was wrong with me. And then finally a doctor, mind you, also guys, one thing I realized that day is that hospitals don't care about mental emergencies. They're treated as like, I've never been treated so bad as a patient, I will say. Like in the ER, like no one came to see us for hours. I'm not joking. I think we waited 3 hours or so before somebody finally came to see us. And after that, it took another probably 2 or 3 hours for a doctor to come talk to us. I remember like people would walk by. My parents were like, is there anybody here that can help us? Like we've been waiting for hours. Nobody's telling us anything, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh no, sorry. Oh no, the doctor's busy. Sorry, blah, blah. Like very like, your issue is not important. Like it was very much like there's other emergencies going on. And I get that. I get there's like life and death situations in the ER, but to be treated kind of like you're just crazy. We have better things to do. Like that was really hurtful. So finally we speak to a doctor and he determined that it turns out the steroid that I was taking, the dexamethasone, because of my kidneys not working, because remember guys, my kidneys were starting to fail. Because of that, my body, what had happened was it wasn't filtering out the steroid I was on. So it like retained it and it caused a side effect of acute delirium. So I experienced delirium because my kidneys weren't working well and it wasn't filtering things out of my body. So once we learned that, they took me, because I was still taking that, not knowing that's what was causing it. Because I still had to take it for like another 5 days or so per what the prescribed bottle said. And so I was still taking it, and they took me off of it. And they let me just kind of let it flush out of my system for a couple days. And I'll never forget the day I finally snapped out of it. My mom had stayed with me that night because they didn't want to leave me alone because they were scared. My parents were worried like they would give me more meds or something. So my mom stayed with me, and I remember that night I woke up and I could like form sentences, and I just remember turning my head and being like, "Mommy?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I remember everything. I can talk." And we both just started crying because we were so worried, obviously, and I had been feeling for like 48 hours like a prisoner in my brain. Yeah, a lot of people don't know I went through that, and honestly it was a lot worse than I'm describing it. It's really hard to put it into words because I don't know how to describe the feeling of like, the best I can say is just I felt trapped in my brain and I couldn't talk. I basically only could say I don't know. So that was in August. Healed from that, kind of. And then I started feeling worse and worse and worse until finally November, I couldn't take it anymore. I remember I was in the kitchen and I told my husband, I'm like, I'm really sad right now. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because I can feel that I'm dying. I'm like, I feel my body shutting down. I know I'm dying. And he's like, what? And so I talked with my mom that day, and she was the one that's like, you need to go to the hospital. You're going to collapse and you're going to die, and you can't leave your daughter. And that day I packed a bag, went to the ER. The next day I was on dialysis, and it's been this ever since, guys. So that's pretty much the backstory of how it all began, and that was my pregnancy and birth story. I figured it would be an interesting one to share because it provides a lot of back details as well. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I am not even sharing. I haven't shared yet the beginning. And I'm talking about how everything actually started, the high blood pressure, all of that. This goes back all the way to my childhood, guys. And I'll unpack that one day. I'm not ready yet. I've been chronically ill since I was 6 years old. So I've been dealing with this my whole life, pretty much. And I will share the story one day, just not today. I have to prepare for that, because it's a lot. It's a lot. I have been through so much that you guys don't even know. And one day I will share. Don't worry. I'm not gonna keep it a secret. I do want to share it. That's the point of the podcast. But that'll be another episode because it's a long story. But thank you guys, as always, so much for listening and for supporting me. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my story and learning a little bit more about my birth and all of that. And yeah, guys, advocate for yourselves. It's scary out there. And advocate for your children. You are their voice. If you feel something in your gut is not right, speak up for them. Okay? Yeah. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I'm going to go and pack now for the beach. Keep thriving, guys. I love you all so much. And again, thank you so much for your continued support. As always, it means the world to me. Follow me on Instagram if you're not. That's at Thrive Era Podcast. And also, I've been meaning to mention this at the end of my podcast, but I keep forgetting. But if you haven't already, please rate it, give it 5 stars, leave a little comment, subscribe. All that stuff helps boost my podcast. So if you're not doing all of that, please do. It'll help me a lot. And also, if there's anything you guys ever want me to talk about, or if you have any questions, like I've said before, feel free to DM me. Again, it's Thrive Era Podcast on Instagram. That's the only social media I have right now. So feel free to message me, reach out to me. I want to talk to you guys and communicate more. So please do. And yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Bye.